Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us again this afternoon. For those of you who are just joining now, we've got about 15 minutes until we get started. I know some people were starting to come in early though, so I just wanted to let you know that we're starting at 2:15, and at that time we will connect and start our session. So I'll see you all soon. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our afternoon session. For those of you just joining us, welcome. My name is Stuart Gray, and I'm an education technology consultant with the Western Quebec School Board here in Gatineau, Quebec, Canada. I'm actually joining you from Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, where I live. But that's my role. And today we are going to focus this session all about efficient and effective assessment with Google Classroom. So the hope today is to be able to uncover some of the elements of Google Classroom, which is a tremendous platform for connecting with students and really an all-in-one digital hub. And we're going to try to unveil some of the pieces to Classroom that can really help make your lives as educators that much easier. So that's the focus for today. Now I'm going to share my screen with you here and we'll get started. And I'll present my deck here that you can see. This slide deck is listed right in our resources at the top of the chat as well. If you notice, there's a pinned message at the top with a little bit.ly link, and I'll show you that in a moment here. But that has all our resources for today's session. So you can actually follow along with the presentation here with the YouTube live event, or you can feel free to browse through the slides and the resources at your own pace. It gives you the flexibility to do that. It also means that afterwards you'll have ongoing access to this link, to the recording from this session. All of this will be available after we wrap up today. My colleague Lisa Diner there just posted into the chat that link as well. Lisa's going to be helping us moderate and answer questions that you have, share those links that we mentioned so that you're able to access all that content as easily as possible. So I will advance along here in our slides. And again, this is our focus today, efficient and effective assessment with Google Classroom. So thanks for joining us. Hopefully you've been having a great day so far. We did a session in the morning all about engagement using Google Classroom or Google for Education tools, focusing on Meet and Jamboard. And this afternoon, we're going to pivot and really take a deep dive into Google Classroom and all of the elements related to that, especially looking at the piece along assessment. So to introduce ourselves, our team here, as I mentioned, my name is Stuart Gray. I was a teacher at one of our larger high schools in the Western Quebec School Board at Sims and Darcy McGee High School in Gatineau, Quebec. And I've taught from grade 7 to 11 science, chemistry, and mathematics. And I started in my role as an ed tech consultant with the board in September of 2019. And I now work alongside my wonderful colleague, Lisa, who has been the RACI in our board for over 20 years. And so, the two of us work together to support our teachers across and really our education community with integrating education technology into the classroom in a pedagogically sound and impactful way. That's really the focus of what we try to do. If you wanted to connect with me today or following today's session, here's just some of my information. If you want to connect on Twitter, for those of you that use it, if you've never dove into the world of Twitter, it is actually a fantastic resource for education and for education technology specifically. It's incredible the amount of learning that happens on that network. And so it's something that I really find it invaluable in my role as an education consultant, because it really allows you to get up-to-date information from lots of different networks, from companies. There's also regular professional learning networks with live chats going on. So it's something that, even if you're not interested in your personal life, in your professional career, it can be a very valuable tool. So if you want to connect there, feel free to join me there. Also on LinkedIn, there's my information, and that link to my Wakelet resources. Lisa and I use the website Wakelet, which is a great tool for curation of digital resources and really makes it simple and easy to share content. So that's information we share across the board, but it's publicly accessible, and feel free to peruse through those resources there if you want to, if there's any content on there that can be helpful to you as educators. So today's session, as we mentioned, the live stream that you're viewing now, and the recording though afterwards, is going to be available at that address. That's what's linked in the our conference platform for today on the site there. That's what's linked, but you can use that same link afterwards, and it will bring you right back to the recording of this YouTube live event. If you've never taken part in a YouTube live event, welcome. Here's your first one. This is a platform where it really allows you to connect with people in real time, but have a little control in terms of the moderation, being able to, again, not worry about people unmuting themselves and having cameras on, but we can still have a real-time interaction. So hopefully everyone's experience so far in terms of the recording or the video quality and the stream is going well. We've got this set at 720p resolution, which is HD, but not full HD or 4K. It's 30 frames per second, and we've got it on what's called low latency. So hopefully you're getting a fairly smooth connection. It allows your computer to have a little bit of a buffer, but you can ask questions in the chat, and I can see those in pretty close to real time. There's generally about a 10-second delay or so. But yeah, this is a way that if you've never used this platform before, it is a good option and a good tool for connecting with people on large scale events. It is something you have access to as well with a G Suite for Education account. So for those of you who joined our morning session, or if you did not join our morning session, if you were taking part in the Moodle or the Microsoft Teams sessions, I had a chance to check out the Microsoft Teams session there at lunch, and again, great overview of the platform and an introduction to it. But if you are interested in accessing any of the content from our presentation this morning, if you weren't able to attend, you can use that link there, bit.ly/GFE. GFE is, you'll see that a few times, stands for Google for Education. And so it's GFE slides. And you can feel free to, again, use that resource if you want to access any of the content we talked about this morning, which is really focused, again, on Google Meet, all the ins and outs of Google Meet, and also Google Jamboard. And it will have the recording link to that session as well. All of this content as well, feel free to share widely across your networks. There's nothing here that can't be distributed and shared with your peers, your colleagues. So please, by all means, share that content along. So a couple pieces here. Just this is a stat that comes up in some of Google for Education's marketing, material, and they talk about the amount of time in a teacher's day on average that's spent on tasks such as grading and lesson planning. And this study from the Cambridge Assessment of International Education came in at about 3 hours a day in terms of teachers' daily tasks on these types of activities. And that is a huge part of our day when you think about that amount of time. And so that's really, I want to start with that because that is, I think, probably why a lot of you are here. This is really, today's conference is all about distance education. And we've been kind of forced into this environment, right, of pivoting to online or remote learning or hybrid learning environments. But at the root of this, even outside of those times, if we're talking about being back in person as normal, hopefully you can see after today's session and with your experiences that education technology is really there to hopefully simplify your life as an educator. It can really improve your workflow. It can help to reduce this time, I think, on a lot of tasks. And it can also create some incredibly engaging learning experiences for students. And so that's, at the root of why we do this and why we're talking about this. In that same study, 88% of UK teachers saw that education technology can enable pedagogical innovation, so allowing for opportunities for our students that otherwise aren't possible, and really can improve educational quality. For those of you familiar with the SAMR model, when we talk about education technology in the classroom, a big piece of that is talking about, again, opening up opportunities for our students that otherwise aren't possible with these technologies. And so that's a really wonderful thing about these tools. So here are learning intentions for today's session. We again had 3 in the morning, and these are our 3 for this afternoon. And really, we're going to focus this afternoon session on Google Classroom best practices, number 1. Number 2, how to distribute, collect, assess, and provide feedback on learning activities through that same platform, through Google Classroom. And within that, we're going to talk about the feedback cycle, how students can submit work, how you can actually provide feedback and assessment on their work and return it to them, but allow the student to continue to edit that same assignment and resubmit it to you. It's something that for English teachers that have started to use Google Classroom and to look at the writing process of drafts and peer feedback or teacher feedback, and then expanding on ideas and resubmitting their final work, Google Classroom offers you an incredible platform to do that. And then the third piece is we're going to look at how rubrics can be used. This is something, again, that will hopefully, regardless of people's level of knowledge with Google Classroom, we're going to try to hopefully uncover pieces that can be of value to you. And rubrics is one of those things that a lot of teachers who have used Classroom previously haven't really dove into using rubrics. And it will hopefully outline today how they can be used for really improving on clear learning outcomes for students and clear expectations, but also make your evaluation highly efficient. You can use these rubrics for really one-click kind of grading in the assignments that you do. And so we're going to outline that in today's session as well. Before we go any further, I want to highlight this site. This is what's known as the Google for Education Teacher Center. And the reason I want to focus on this right at the beginning is because everything that we talk about today, there is in-depth support directly from Google for Education for these tools. And it's something that if you haven't had a chance to check it out previously, I know the people in the morning session, we talked about this, but I do want to just quickly highlight this again for people joining us this afternoon for the first time. But this site is a really, really comprehensive now all-in-one destination for Google for Education resources. And it's, again, written specifically for educators. It's all content designed specifically for you as teachers and educators. And why it's so powerful is because it offers you a range of different learning materials. There are quick product guides where, if again you want to get an overview of Google Classroom, for example, you can select that product and you can see introductory videos. You can then see specific video content of all the different things we need to do on a daily basis with Google Classroom with our students. There are also additional kind of tips and tricks and advanced options for that. And they include some PDF documents as well that can be, again, really easily then shared, with colleagues, even with students and parents for supporting them. They have even sample things like sample lesson plans, resources and templates for assignments, things like that. Those can all be found on these product pages. The other really valuable piece to this is that there's training courses which allow new learners and also advanced learners, people who know Google for Education well already, to go through a structured, self-paced PD module. And it's all, again, it's completely free to access. And it allows you to go through and track your progress through there, do things in bits and pieces and work your way through these self-paced PE courses and really become, fully knowledgeable in all the elements of Google for Education. It also allows you then, once you're finished, if you are interested, you can do a certification examination to become what's called a Google for Education Level 1 Certified Educator or a Google for Education Level 2 Certified Educator. And you get a nice fancy certificate and a shiny digital badge. But really, it opens up a huge amount of learning, even for people who have used these tools for a long time. I wrote the Level 2 certification exam last March, and that process of going through that course and doing this examination, which is it's a real-time live examination where you have to carry out tasks in a live Google for Education domain. It really opened up a lot of elements to the platform that previously I wasn't aware of. And so it's a very valuable, worthwhile thing to do. They list these, I know, like people see these times and those are some pretty serious time commitments listed. I personally found that if you have some knowledge already of the platform, I don't think you would spend 12 hours and 54 minutes going through the basics of G Suite. But again, that's what they kind of set as time if you're going through every article and video and all of the learning tasks. But I think a lot of you find you could progress through that at your own pace. That's a nice thing too, is you can kind of jump along, hit the key elements you need, and then when you're ready, you can write that certification exam. Those certifications as well allow you, if you're interested in becoming what's known as a Google Certified Trainer, if you do trainings for your fellow colleagues, or a Google Certified Innovator as well, which is another program that Google has to offer. So I wanted to highlight that off the beginning, at the beginning, because it is a very, very valuable resource. That is my go-to destination for all learning related to Google for Education. In the morning session, we talked a little bit about the difference between the free and the enterprise tier of Google for Education tools. This is something that, again, most people in their domains are in a, I'm going to hide my video here for a sec just so you can see the full document. Most people are in a free Google for Education domain, which again offers us all of the tools that we use on a regular basis. There is now a Google G Suite for Enterprise Education license. And the main thing that will open up is related to online classes. If you're using Meet, Google Meet, on a daily basis for your online classes connecting with students, it does allow you to do things like have synchronous live breakout rooms, conduct in-meeting polls, conduct Q&As, and also track meeting attendance. And so there were some questions this morning about the differences between these two tiers. And so I wanted to highlight this in the slide here. I've included it in the morning slide deck as well. And then the piece specifically to Google Classroom and assignments, the enterprise license does also open up what's called unlimited and peer-to-peer originality reports. And originality reports is really like a built-in plagiarism detector, but it's done, I think, in a really unique and innovative way where it actually allows students to run originality checks before they submit their work. And so it's not about trying to catch people in the process of plagiarizing. It's about trying to help students recognize you haven't properly cited your work or referenced your work, and this is deemed plagiarism. It helps students identify that before they submit work. And then as a teacher, though, you have the same options. You can run these reports and check for submitted content against sources on the internet and also against peer submitted work. So you can have it automatically detect similarities between peers' work in the same assignment. So that's something that is opened up with this enterprise tier. Again, everything else we do today, though, is available in the free G Suite for Education license. It is all available. All these other Google Classroom options we look at are all available in the G Suite for Education free license. But I wanted to just outline that because there were people interested. The price ends up working out. There are domain-wide pricing structures available, but if boards are looking at licensing individual teachers, because you can do that, you can license just the teachers who would need access to these enhanced tools. It doesn't have to be every user in your domain. You can license just those teachers, and it equates to about $60 Canadian per year for each of those teachers that you would need to license. So it's something that I want to outline because I know there have been questions about that this morning. In terms of, again, the what it opened up for the online classes in Google Meet, breakout rooms, polls, and Q&A are the big three features that it opens up in this activity pane that you wouldn't see on a free license when you're in a Google Meet as a teacher, but you do see when you have an enterprise license. And I wanted to include just some reference material to those three things if you're interested in exploring that further and learning more about how you use those breakout rooms, polls, or the Q&A if you do end up using a license. You can also apply, your domain can apply for a free trial where all teachers can get access to a 30-day free trial of the enterprise features as well. So that's something that your domain administrator can do. And there was a question this morning about, can we send our students into breakout rooms on a mobile device? And I was caught up in not knowing my current information about the product. And I said I wasn't sure if it was available yet. And I can confirm, yes, your students can do that. So if they have an updated version of Google Meet on their Android tablet or phone or iPad or iOS device, they can be sent into breakout rooms and participate with those on a mobile device as well, just as they could on a computer. So I wanted to highlight those pieces to begin. I also included the links in case you do use Google Jamboard. If you're interested, there's some great pre-created resource templates and ideas for Google Jamboard at these links that you are welcome to use. Now, this is the point of the session where we pivot to what I call the choose your own adventure portion of this session. you can follow along for the remaining, hour and 10 minutes or so and just watch the live stream, follow along with, what's being screen shared and what we're doing. The recording is going to be available. You've got the resources in the slide deck, but you can also, if you like, you can take part in a live demonstration of a Google Classroom. You are welcome to head to this link, and maybe Lisa can paste that into the chat. It's bit.ly/GFE account. And that's going to bring you to a shared Google Sheets document. And it's going to allow you to actually sign up for a demonstration account that we have. And all of these demonstration accounts are already enrolled in a Google Classroom that I've created. So I'm going to demonstrate what that process would look like now. A number of you from this morning already did this. If you are back joining us for the afternoon session, you will not need to re-sign up. But if you did not attend this morning, I'm going to paste, thank you, Lisa, for sharing that, and you should be able to click on that link directly from the chat and open it up, and it's going to bring you to a document that looks like this. And I imagine people were fast this morning. There's probably a number of you already in the document now. Yeah, I can see there's lots of people in this collaborative Google Sheet. And this is set so that you don't have to worry about deleting, the email, the password, or the instructions. That's all in a locked or protected range of cells. But you can place your name beside these available accounts. Now, we had about 38 of these, 40 of these signed up this morning. What I would ask you to do, if you would like to take part again in this kind of live demonstration, live exploration of the classroom, which if you're comfortable kind of multitasking, especially if you have a second monitor or a second screen or device available, you can follow along with the live stream on one screen or one device, and you could then be carrying out, these different activities in the Google Classroom on the other screen or other device. You're welcome to do that. So if you'd like to do that, find an open spot here. Right now, accounts 39 through 49 are available, and you could just come in, put your name, select that cell. As long as you don't see any other colored outline around that cell, you know that nobody else is editing it. And you could then just put your name there beside, and you can use those credentials to log in just a moment to a real live Google for Education domain that we will all then be part of together, which is a great function here. It's where, I have my own, Google Classrooms in my Western Quebec domain, but to be able to invite people from multiple domains in, this is a great way that we can do that. We're all actually using accounts that are in the same domain. So feel free to sign up. If we end up running out, I don't think, because a lot of people who are here now were here this morning, and so you've already signed up for your credential. That's great. You can use the same one. If at any point you run out and you're saying, I don't have an available spot to sign up for, please just let us know, put it into the chat and let Lisa and I know. And what I can do is just confirm maybe, who's here right now. And if there's somebody not using their account, we can remove them and you can take their license. Are there any questions related to that? People can take a minute to just type in the chat if there's any questions. Otherwise, once you have your email and your password, so you can see all the emails are GFE1 through 50 at gsefe-school.com. That stands for G Suite for Education Enterprise School.com. And this is a demo domain that as a Google trainer I have available to use for things like this, which is a really nice it's a nice perk of being a Google trainer. It allows us to do this. But that is the same, it's the same email format, and the password is Go Google 1. Now, once you have that, you could just copy your email. You could select it, press Control C on the keyboard. I'm gonna use this first one here. Press Control C, and you could then either open up a new Chrome profile, so sign in with a new Chrome profile, or open up an incognito window in Chrome and then head to classroom.google.com. To do those things, if you haven't used Chrome profiles before, if you are in Chrome, but this also works if you're in Edge as well. And there's if you're in Firefox or Safari, then I'd use the in private browsing window option, not called incognito in those browsers, but there's similar functions. But in Chrome, you can just click on your icon in the top right, and you can click Add, and it will bring up a little dialog that looks like this to sign into your new Google account. And I'll just use this GFE1 as the example here as my username. Click Add. And since I actually have these Google credentials being given to me, I actually am already a Chrome user. I have a Google education license, so I can click already a Chrome user, sign in. And then you can paste in your email, click next. You can then type in your password, which for all of them is Go Google 1. You can click show password there if you like, just to confirm. And we click next. So now these demonstration accounts, you're welcome to use these today and even after today's session. They will expire in 14 days. So after that, it's going to expire. But for now, you can use this account to join into our classroom. And once you're in your either incognito browser or you're signed into your profile, at any Google website, you'll see the app launcher. It's a little 3x3 grid of icons in the top. And if we click on that, it opens up all the available tools we have in G Suite for Education. Little note on wording. Google has changed the name of what is previously known as G Suite, Google Suite of Tools, to Google Workplace. In education, it's still referred to generally as G Suite for Education. So you'll kind of see those two terms interchangeably used. But regardless of what you call it, we want to go to Google Classroom. And so you can either access it from the app launcher there and select that classroom icon, that nice chalkboard icon, or you can just type into your browser classroom.google.com. And when you access that site, you'll see here, it's going to recognize your credentials. If you haven't signed in yet, if you're using an incognito window or a private browser, it'll prompt you at Google Classroom to sign in with your Google credentials, and you can use that account you signed up for. And then you just confirm, yes, that is my account here. I'll click continue. And you can see you've already been added to 2 Google Classrooms. And that's the great thing about using this demo domain, is that you've already been added. We don't have to go through that whole process, but I am going to outline that. But I just want to demonstrate that if you are here now, you will automatically see you're part of these 2 classes. We are not going to use this economics class. So as a student, you can feel free to drag this out of the way. We're part of the EdTech crew here. So we're going to do the EdTech with Google for Education classroom. That's the one we're going to be using. So you're welcome to open that up and you can join into our class. Now, I am going to quickly outline what the setup process looks like if you're using Google Classroom. So again, I think, from the planning going into this session and talking to James and talking to Alex, the majority of people have some experience with Google Classroom already. So we are going to kind of assume there is a base understanding, but I do want to quickly go through some of the initial setup if you really haven't had a lot of chance to use Google Classroom in real time in the classroom. I will outline that setup here quickly. And so what that looks like to start, if you've never created a class, you just do that at the plus sign at the top where it says create or join a class. And in this case, as a teacher, we want to create a class. We can then enter the class name. So maybe this is my my grade 11 chemistry group from a couple years ago. So CHE 50401, and I often put my name in there just so, again, the students know. I can put the section. Actually, the section would be the group, so 011 group, and the subject is chemistry. You don't need to actually fill out all these details, but I'm going to do that here just to show you what that looks like. You really just need a class name. That's all you need to actually input. But in this case, I'll put those details, and we're meeting here virtually, so I'm going to use Google Classroom to Meet is going to be our room. And then when you're ready, you click Create. And it takes all of about 8 seconds to create your classroom. It won't take long. And then your class is ready to start using. You can see it brings me right in. And this is the Google Classroom interface, which again, I'm sure lots of you are familiar with, but it brings me in here. And a couple of first things that I encourage people to do when you're starting off with your classroom is you can customize your banner, your theme. It's going to take on the name that you gave your class. If you did give it a group number, it's going to show here. If you click on this little down arrow, the caret here, that will show again the subject and room details you provided if you did add those. But you can also select a theme that's going to be applicable to your class to customize things a little bit. Or you can upload a photo as well, which is great. So if you've got a picture of your classroom, or if you have a logo that you use in your school or something like that, you can upload a custom kind of header image to use in that class. In this case, I'm going to just select a default theme, but this headphones one is not really speaking to my chemistry group. So I'm going to go in and select an image and go into, in this case, math and science. And now I've got this great beaker. I've got an Erlenmeyer flask and a beaker, and I'm going to use that as my theme. So I'll select that, and you can see that it's going to change. It's going to change our theme here at the top. So once we've got that created, the next thing I encourage people to do in their Google Classroom is to click on this Generate Meet Link button. And what that does is it's going to make a Google Meet link that is permanently accessible within your classroom. So even if you're not in online learning, it allows you to have a Meet link set up so that if you do go into reconfinement, if you did have to pivot to online or remote instruction, it's ready to go. You've got a link there that's accessible for you and your students right within your class. And this really helps to make Google Classroom and Google Meet, the two of those things combined, they really become an all-in-one digital hub, is a term Lisa and I use a lot. Something that provides a place for communication, whether one or two-way communication with your students and with their parents. It provides easy access to store and share resources for the class, digital resources. It allows you to do distribution, collection, assessment, and feedback of learning activities and assignments. And it also provides you a live video conferencing platform, all in a single interface. And that's why tools like Google Classroom and Meet now are really are becoming I kind of refer to them as a modern day LMS or learning management system. A lot of teachers and schools and districts and boards are finding that they don't need to have a separate learning management system because all of the things that you need to do are contained within these tools. And if this is the platform that you're going to interact with your students on a daily basis, why make them go to another source as well? It can be done all through a single interface, which I really like that about Classroom and Meet. So by clicking on Generate Meet Link, it's going to say with Meet video links, you can connect with students for distance learning. You can manage the Meet in your class settings. So I'm going to click Generate Meet Link. And then I have the option to toggle this on. Do I want this viewable or visible to students or not? I leave that on, and I'll explain why. If you weren't in online learning, you could just toggle that off and click Save. And only you as the teacher are going to see this. It's not visible to students. But if you are doing any online teaching, I leave that as visible. And the reason that's not an issue is because students can't start this Google Meet video conference without you. Only someone listed as a classroom teacher can actually open up and start this Meet link. So there's no concern about your students being able to start a meeting unattended, to connect with their classmates without any teacher supervision using a school provided platform. That is not a concern. They will not have the ability to start that. So that's something, it's a really nice piece that you can just have that Meet link right there ready to go. Now, the fact that I select there not visible to students, I'll show you how we can just flick that on and change that so that it becomes visible to our students when we need to start doing online learning. So once I've customized my theme, I've created my Meet link, the next kind of best practice that I recommend for a classroom is to go into your settings. And in the settings, This is where, again, if you want to edit your name, your description, your group. So for a description, I'll say this is our digital hub for grade 11 chemistry 2020, 2021, something like that. And we can edit all those details. This is also, again, where you can see that the Meet link down here, if I want it to be visible to students, I can just toggle that on now and make it so that they can now see it. And one of the, in this menu here of these class settings, the most important thing I recommend people to take the time to go in and look at is what's here under Stream. The default settings, when you create a Google Classroom, these are the default settings. Students can post and comment. And what that means is that students can reply and comment on things that you share. So announcements you make, assignments that you distribute to them, they can reply to that, but they can also start a new thread. They can start a new thread for any questions that they might have. And maybe that is what you want, but I generally encourage you to switch this from students can post and comment to students can only comment. It's a little shift, but then it makes it so that your announcements section, that stream where people are going to see announcements from you as a teacher, it is much less cluttered, and students will really see the messages, the assignments that you send out as the teacher, and they can reply and ask targeted questions to any of those things, but they can't just, spam your message board, your stream there, just saying hello, 50 times over and bury all your messages. So it's a setting that can be really helpful to switch that to students can only comment. The other thing in the below that says classwork on the stream, the default is it says shows condensed notifications, and that'll kind of just, after you've posted it, as things, new posts get made, it hides the description and it hides the links. Personally, I like kind of at quick glance to see all of the attachments and the details of announcements I make or of assignments I distribute. So I switch this myself to show attachments and details. That's my recommended settings, but again, it's really customizable by the teacher. It's something that you can decide on. So that's really the two pieces I would ensure to save here. Now, I'm going to leave this, Chemistry 50401 group. That was just to demonstrate the process of that setup, but we'll do everything from here on out in the one that you are all a part of, and that's the Ed Tech with Google for Education team. You can always navigate between your classrooms just by clicking on what they call the stack, the three lines here, the main menu. And by opening that up, you can see other classes and you can quickly jump back and forth between them. You can also just click on classes and it will show you your 3 classes here, in this case 3 for me. You have the ability to switch to the calendar view as well, and that will show you at a quick glance, and your students have this same option as well. That'll show you due dates. Are there assignments that have a due date between all of your classes? So all of your classes assigned work that falls on that day will be visible at a quick glance. And you can browse through, at different times. You can filter this by class if you like as well, but you've got a nice option to see that. And we can, again, if you were to jump ahead and you wanted to get back quickly to today, there's that little calendar icon at the top right you can click on. It'll bring you back to today's view. So that's a helpful piece. The other piece is that there is also a quick shortcut to this link which says to review. And that is going to bring you to any assignments that are currently active. So do you have work in progress? So these are assignments that have been distributed. The due date, in this case, they haven't passed yet for these, but it shows you work that is coming in. It shows you a quick glance of the status of the work, how many have been assigned, how many have been turned in, how many have you already graded, and you can really quickly open that up. You can just click on that and open the assignment. You could also, if you say, I'm actually done with this, you can mark it as reviewed and it will hide it from this view and it will move it into this reviewed section at the top here. And then you can go back again, see any older assignments and quickly glance all of your assignments between all your classes. You could also filter down into an individual class if you like, right from here. So it's a nice option you have to see again at a glance what's coming up in terms of your workload as a teacher to assess. You can see what's on the radar in terms of what's coming up. So those are just all options under this little main menu. I'm going to go back to the classes kind of home page here. And you can see you've got a link to that to review button and to the calendar button right there in the Google Classroom homepage as well. One other note in that menu, if you have a class that you end up not using, so if you, at the end of the year, you are moving on, starting a new class the next year, and you're going to add a new set of students, you can archive your class so that it doesn't, clutter up your view of active classes. Like if I wasn't using this Chem 504 class anymore, I can just click on the 3 dots and I can click archive. And it's going to tell me that archiving class causes it to be archived for all participants. Participants can no longer modify content unless it's restored, but the files still remain in your Google Drive. And you can actually still reuse those files later on in an active class. So I'm going to archive this one because we're not going to use it. But that still then allows me, now I can focus on the key content. If I ever need to get back to an archived class, I can click on that main menu and click on archived classes here. And I can see these old classes that I've been a part of that I'm no longer using. And I could restore them if I need to from there as well by clicking on the 3 dots, and I could restore the class. If you want to fully delete it, you can do that as well. So that's under the 3 line there, that main menu option. You also have overall Google Classroom settings under settings. So if you click on that, this is just, these are default things that will appear, but you can change your profile picture if you don't already have one linked with your Google account. You can also decide as a teacher, what notifications do you want? This is something that's kind of a little hidden away, I find, in Google Classroom a bit, and people don't often see this, and they say, I'm getting an email every time a student writes a question about an assignment that we gave out. And maybe your students, like some of mine, have the habit of, like, they write they separate that one question into about 7 different messages that they're actually replying with. So you may end up getting a lot of email notifications. And if you don't want to do that, you can customize in here. What do you get notifications on? If you don't want any email notifications, you just toggle that switch, and you will never get an email from Google Classroom, and you can do all of your viewing of your assignments, your notifications, just by going to the classroom yourself. But if you do like to be notified of those things, sometimes via email, you can toggle that on, and you can customize it. Do you want comments on your post? Do you want comments that only mention you specifically, where your students actually put an @ symbol in front of your name and tagged you in a comment? They can do that in a message in Classroom, just like in lots of platforms. You put an @ symbol and they start typing your name or a student's name, and it mentions them specifically. Do you want to get messages, private comments on student work? So students will have the option to write a private message to an assignment that's active and not have it visible for the whole class. And then also things about submissions, late submissions, resubmissions, invitations from other teachers. All of those things you can customize. And also you can toggle this by class, which is great too. So you can say, you know what, I really do need to stay on top of my notifications for my ed tech class. I'm gonna leave that on. I really don't care about economics. I shouldn't say that. Economics is great. It's very important. But in this case, you could toggle off economics and just focus on your ed tech notifications if you like. So that's something I wanted to highlight, because a lot of people don't ever dive into that little menu of the settings in the archived classes. Now, going back to my main class page, I'm going to just address a couple questions that I saw in the chat. I saw someone mention, if you have, let me see here. Sorry, Jessica was saying, if you're teaching a class with multiple subjects, you've created a classroom for each subject. Is it possible to have the same Meet link for multiple classrooms? No, Lisa answered that, and Lisa's mentioned that it's going to make a unique Meet link for each class. There's no way when you click on that Generate Meet link to have this same link provided in all 4 sections. And I think I can understand that as a teacher, where like you could go into one Meet link and have multiple students from different groups join in potentially. Unfortunately, that's not an option. Each Meet link that you generate is going to be unique to that class. So that is something to keep in mind. Now, you could potentially start a Meet from one class and then actually send out the meeting invitation, send out the link to that live Meet to your students in your other class and invite them in. You do have the ability to do that in Google Meet. I actually have our Meet still running from this morning. I've heard a couple people trying to get in from the lobby. We're not going to use the Google Meet in this session, but just to demonstrate, in the bottom left here, I've got this my meeting information. I can pop this out and see my meeting details, and I could copy that join info, and then I could just go into my other classes. Like if this was started for our ed tech class, but I wanted to invite my economics students, I could go into the economics class and say, hello everyone, please join our ed tech class with the link here. And by pasting that in, they're actually going to get that Google Meet link that they can click on and join. And again, we're using kind of best practices here in terms of our Meet. We've got it set up that they won't be able to join in without you permitting them in from the lobby, but it allows you to invite those students from other class into the Meet that, again, is housed, like the link is being housed in my ed tech class, but I can invite others into it from my school's domain. So that's an option you've got. Just look at Felicia's question about you've created a classroom just for communication with students in the stream. It's open and you want to contribute. Absolutely. That settings are related to how you moderate your stream. That really is completely up to you in terms of what works best for your class. A lot of people leave it completely open so that students can just have a one-stop place where they don't need to send you an email. They can do all of their questions right within the class, right within the stream. So it's an option. And again, as you outlined, like if you do have clear rules about how people interact, it's a great opportunity to talk about digital citizenship and responsible use of a pedagogical platform. Absolutely, you can leave. Don't worry about toggling that to students can only reply. You can leave it open for them. Let me just go down. See, Maria was asking about deleting a classroom. So if we didn't need this economics class anymore, and maybe just to simplify things, to hide it for everyone, I could click on the 3 dots and I can click archive. It's going to move it into the archive. Now, there's really no concern about like leaving it in the archive. Students won't be able to edit any content in there and post anything. But if you end up with like 60 archived classes and you're sometimes looking for what content do you want to reuse and what's the real content you want, you can, once it's in the archive, click on the 3 dots and then delete. And you can see it'll give you a little warning here. This is permanent. There's no going back from this. Would you like to do this? And then in that case, you can click delete. So you're welcome. Yeah, you can do that as needed. Let's just see. I'm looking through the other questions. Is there a way to bring students into a new class? No, I'll outline, Felicia, how, kind of recommendations for transferring students into a new class or inviting students. We'll get into that right now. But there's no kind of like automated way to just move them from one class to another. You can't just reuse that roster. So okay. I think that's most of the questions here. Erica was saying, when putting class into the archives, can other teachers that have invited the classroom before still revisit and retrieve the archived class? Yes. When you archive a class, the people who are listed as co-teachers, they can still find that in their archived class as well, and they can still access the content and reuse that as an assignment in their active classes. So yeah, they still have access to that. It's not like it's removing it for all of them. So let's dive into our actual EdTech with Google for Education class that you're all invited to. And I have set the permissions for this group. So if we just highlight again in the settings, I've set this that there's a Meet link visible. Students though can only comment on posts, but you're welcome to do that. And so I'm going to just make an announcement here and just say, hello everyone, welcome to class, welcome to our class. Feel free to share any thoughts you have below. And this is also outlining a post. And a post is what is found in your stream. So you can see Google Classroom is broken down into 4 main tabs for you as a teacher. For students, they'll really see 3, stream, classwork, grades. But you as a teacher see stream, classwork, people, and grades. And I think they're pretty clearly named as to what they're used for. The stream maybe is the one where people say, well, what exactly is a stream? It's your communication hub. This is where you can have your one-way, announcement platform for students, or a fully, collaborative 2-way communication hub for your students. That's all found in the stream. And one of the options you have is to do what we're doing here, which is to make a post. So I can announce something to my class, and I can just put in text. You can also put in emoticons if you want as well. So on the Windows, I'm in Windows here, so you just press Windows key period, and it brings up the emoticon keyboard or the emoji keyboard, and you could put in a little emoticon if you like. And you can post that. You can add attachments, so anything in your Google Drive, a web link, a file that's on your computer, or a YouTube video. And the cool thing about the YouTube piece here as well is that it'll pull the details of the video, and you can actually just search. So if I want to share something about Google Classroom with the group, I could type in, do a little search, find here Google Classroom 101. This is a good tutorial from Google for Education. And I could add that, and it will pull in those details, and it makes a link that people can then view right from that post. So that's an option you have, is to add that content to your post. It could be, again, it could be an image, could be files, website links, or a YouTube video. You can post it right now, or if I click on the drop-down arrow beside post on the little carrot there, I could save this as a draft and say, you know what, I'm gonna review that video first. I'm doing the poor teaching practice of attaching a video that I've never watched before. That's not a good idea. Make sure you vet that content. So maybe I'm going to save that as a draft and watch it, and then I'll decide if I'm going to share that out. You can also schedule your post. So you can say, it's 1 a.m. in the morning. Maybe I want that post to go out to my students at 8 a.m. tomorrow. I use this feature all the time. I can't tell you how often I do that with my posts or my emails, because I do work late at night sometimes. So you can schedule it to be sent at a reasonable hour of day so your students don't think you're crazy. Maybe you want to highlight how late you work though for them. In that case, feel free to post away at 1 a.m. They get a sense of what a teacher's life is really like. But you've got that option to schedule it. The save as draft piece, as I mentioned, is nice because I can click that. It's going to just move it under saved announcements. So it pops it up here where I can, make a new announcement, and it doesn't have to, erase my previous draft. I can have multiple drafts of announcements, but I get this little box here that says saved announcements with a drop down. None of my students see that. Only I, as the teacher, will see that. My co-teachers, I can click on the arrow. I can see my draft. I could delete it if I need to, or just open it up again. Say, you know what, that looks good. I'm ready to post it. I can post. One other thing I wanted to mention is that if you have multiple active classes, so I just archived that economics class. So that's why this is grayed out right now. But if you have multiple active classes, you can send your announcement once to all of your classes. And this is something that is really, really helpful for me. If I was teaching, my last teaching role was 2 sections of grade 11 chemistry, 2 sections of grade 10 science, and I kept those groups pretty closely in step, and I didn't want to duplicate that. So I would send my announcement for my chemistry group once, send my announcement for my science groups once, and just select my 2 classes, and that message goes to both of them. And they don't know, my group 2 class doesn't know that I actually sent it originally in the group 1 class. There's no favoritism here. They'll all receive that message with the link, and they'll all be able to reply. So it's a great option. You can also do individualized messaging with students. So I see 17 courses Felicia just mentioned. Yeah, so that being able to send to multiple classes, a very useful feature. Please do not redo things 17 times when it's going to be the same, announcement. Same thing goes for assignments. When we start diving into assignments, you create the assignment, the structure once, and if it's the same class, they're working on the same thing, you can distribute your assignment to all 17 classes in a single click. And then if you need to tweak the due dates, because maybe they aren't all going to fall on the exact same due date, we can go back into those individual classes and change that after. But in terms of the setup, you can do it all at once. With your students too, this gives you a spot where you can have individualized communication hub with your students. I could send a message out to, I think Lisa was 2 in terms of the students. This is like the 2 GFE is not a very descriptive name here. But if I needed to message just this student, I could, and it would go to only them and nobody else in the class would see that comment. But my student there, Lisa in that case, could still reply to it. And they could have then an individual reply with me. So you could have individualized streams for supporting all your students. You could do that once at the start of the year, like send each of your students a message once individually, and they have that thread then that they can reply to at any point in the year for individualized communication with you, private from the rest of the group, but again, all in a single hub, in a single spot, not having to go into their email, not having to go, into a different messaging system. It's all in one interface, which for, especially for younger students, it's a huge deal to simplify that process for them. So I'm going to send this out for all students. Click post, and it's going to give me a little announcement. It's nice too. It gives you a warning. Are you sure it's 1 a.m.? It doesn't actually say that. I wish it did. But in this case, we'll post. I'm trying to remember. There actually is somewhere, it might be on the assignments. There was somewhere where it does give you a little notification saying there's something about it looks a little bit late. Do you want to post it now? I think that's with the assignments. I have to review that. But there you've got a post now that you should all see this, welcome message. There's a video that you can click and play, and the video is embedded, which is great. Little thing, but it doesn't open up a new tab. People can watch that content directly in the class. They click away from the video when they're done. They're right back into your stream, and they can say, that video made no sense to me. Can you please elaborate or explain, Mr. Gray? If anybody wants to just demonstrate, thank you, 2 GFE there. So I think that's Lisa. So you can see here in real time, Lisa commented on the message, which is great. And I have the ability here. I wanted to highlight this. And again, feel free, please, anybody who's in the class right now, message away. You can't start a new post, remember? I've restricted that, but you can add any comments you like to any of these posts that have already been sent out. But I can moderate these messages, and I can delete Lisa's message if I needed to. This is a pretty appropriate message. I don't need to delete that. I could also mute an individual student, which is really great as well. So if 2GFE, which I know is Lisa, but if 2GFE starts to, really not follow the protocols and the etiquette we talk about with our students, you can mute individual students. You can prevent individual students from being able to reply or to post. Again, as people are saying, if you open up your stream so all your students can post, if you have 99% of your class that are using it well, but you have a student that's bad language, here, I'll delete Lisa's bad language comment. If you have one student that's really not respecting it, you can mute them. And that allows the rest of your class to continue to use this to reply as that messaging hub or to post questions if they have them. But that single student is prevented that access until maybe, they have a conversation with you through a video call or, in person. We talk about expectations and behavior, have a little restorative practice session, and then we can re-enable it for them. But it's a great option that you have. I'll just to demonstrate here too, if I did need to connect with that one student, let's say I needed to connect with Lisa, I know that she had a question. I can message here and just say, hi Lisa, I know you had a question about our last assignment. So I could just send that. And again, if I post this, no one else here in the class, if you were in the class now, nobody will see that message except for that single student. And I can click, that shows me one student. I can see it's going to Lisa, it's going to GFE. And they can reply, they could put in their question. And then again, they can have that targeted feedback individualized for them. You could also do that for groups of students. So if you've got students, 1, 10, and 11 are working on a project together, I could message that group. So maybe this is the group 1. I'll say, hi, project group 1. Any questions? Then we can have, again, targeted posts for groups of students. Maybe it's particular students that we assign, that we support in different ways. But you can have that targeted messaging all in a single platform. And as students reply, it will bump these things up. It will, again, actually move these most active, most recent threads up to the top of your list. And I can see here, Lisa saying that, yeah, she needs help with that assignment. So it's a great way. Again, no other student though in the entire class sees that response. Nobody else is going to have any idea that Lisa's really struggling with that assignment. So this is why, we say that it really can become your all-in-one communication platform, alleviating the need for emails or for other messaging platforms and doing it all in a single digital hub. So looking at Felicia had a question in the main page where all the classes are the 3 dots on each class, no notifications in there. As a teacher, again, when you're logged in with a teacher account, you would all be added as students right now. But as a teacher, when you click on those 3 lines and go into settings, you will see those options for the notifications. But you have to be logged into your account where you're registered as a teacher in your Google for Education domain. Now, looking at the people portion. So again, that's how we invite students to the class. There are different ways that you can do this, but I wanted to outline, my recommended best practices for this. So first of all, when you want to add a co-teacher, you can click on the plus sign here and you can type in someone's name. And again, this is outside of our account right now. This is this demo domain. So maybe GFE2 as Lisa's account. Maybe she's a teacher in this case. But you can just search for people in your domain and then you can invite them. I'm not actually going to add Lisa as a co-teacher right now because I'd like her to be able to continue to work on assignments as a student. So I'm going to leave that for now, but that's where you can invite co-teachers to your group just by clicking on that plus sign. And this is how I recommend adding students and inviting students. Rather than sharing a link in an email with them and they have to open their email and navigate to that and click on that and then go to their browser and make sure they're signed in with their credentials and their proper profile. Personally, I like to invite people directly into the class. I like to add them directly. And the way that you do that is using that plus sign and just starting to type in your students' names. And now it does require you to do this once for all of your students at the beginning of the year. So if you are teaching 17 sections, maybe, again, this is not realistic, but depending on your student numbers, this would allow it that all the students do is go to classroom.google.com and they will see they are invited to your class. It'll automatically have them added and they just click accept. If you have, again, huge numbers of students, then I want to outline, how you can add them and invite them as well. Back on our class homepage, you see there's this class code and I can click on the display option here. And in person, if you have students in person, you just pop this up on your front of class display and have them go to classroom.google.com and select join and they type in the code and that's it. They're automatically added. If we're in remote learning and again, you don't have that ability, then what you can do as well is you can click on this copy invite link and that's going to copy the specific link to join this classroom to your clipboard. And then you can send it to your students through an email. So if you've got an email distribution group, you can then send it to them and they can join that way. So that's going to be a more realistic option. Again, if you have very high numbers of students and you're in a remote teaching environment, that copy invite link is an option you can use. Just under the people tab as well, last thing here in terms of the management before we dive into the assignments piece is that you can manage actions for your students. So remember I mentioned that, if you want to mute a single student, you can do that there. So I could mute one GFE's ability to, again, they can still see submitted work. They can't reply though to classmates' work, and they can't comment or post. So in that case, if that's what I want to do, I can click mute and it's going to do that. And you can see, you get this little red speaker with a slash through it showing that they've been muted. If I need to undo that later on in the year, we've had that conversation, they're ready to be get back into participating as expected. I can select them and then I can select unmute. This is also where you can remove students from your class. If they're no longer part of your class, but you want to keep the rest of the class active, you can click on that, select actions, and remove, and you can remove them there. If your organization is purely using Google for Education, so if all of your accounts, like your board accounts, are linked to Gmail, for example. So if your students are actively using Gmail with their school account, you can also email them. You can select that option and either under actions or under the 3 dots, you can select email student. And what it's going to do is automatically pop open a Gmail tab, and it's going to input their address. If you want to message your whole class through an email, again, instead of in the stream, and again, maybe this is something I prefer personally to do all the communication as much as possible in the stream. But if there are times that you need to send an email, you could do this. You could select all of them and then under actions, click email. It's going to pop open a tab here and it's going to input all of those addresses. So it's going to have the 50 students all automatically imported here into the group. So that's an option you have as well. And the last thing here to outline is a useful piece, potentially not as much in the adult sector. And right now in this demo Google for Education domain, they don't have it enabled, but depending on your domain settings and how your Google administrator has set this up, you will notice in the actions or in these 3 dots, you would notice an option to add parent. And again, I think, in adult ed and voc ed, this may not be as applicable, but our youth sector teachers use this a lot. There's an option to add parent. And again, it does require you to type in the parent's email address who's affiliated with that student once. You'd have to do that once at the beginning of the year. But then once you've done it, you also have the option to email the parent directly from this interface. And also there's an option to set up automated parent and guardian email summaries where it will automatically email parents and they can decide on the interval. It could be weekly, it could be daily. It will automatically email them. There's nothing you need to do, and it will update them on recent announcements. It will update them on class work and assignments that have been assigned. It will even have selected grades specific to their student. So recent work that's been returned to the student, it will show that information in that weekly Guardian summary. So that's an option, again, if it's been enabled in your domain and if it's something that's applicable for your groups. So we're going to pivot to really focusing on the classwork piece. And you can see here, we've already got a number of different assignments and content that we've added. And I wanted to highlight here just the kind of structure again of using this. You can set up topics where you can then have different areas differentiated. And I really like doing that and separating what you're adding into sections where it makes sense. It's easy for your students to filter by what that is and find the content. So adding a topic is really a useful piece. And in terms of then the content you add to your classwork page, this can be a material post, which is really for resources. So like this, for example, I posted the Google for Education Teacher Center. It's a link and a description. And again, people could comment on that and view it and comment specifically on that. So that's a material post. we've got the ability to post questions. So you can have questions where I can see some people have already filled this out. But if you create a question, I'm going to start talking about these different assignment options. When you create a question, it allows you to put in your text, put in any instructions, attach any resources, materials you'd like. And this can be done in a short answer format or in a multiple choice format in terms of their student answer options. This interface you're going to see is going to be the same whether we're doing a question, a quiz, an assignment, whatever category we're using. We have these different options that I can, again, if I have multiple groups, send this to multiple classes by clicking on this box here where it has my class name. I could send it to individual students and target just single students for this question. You can assign grade categories and points, and you can assign due dates and what topic you'd want to see this under. So I'm going to demonstrate. I've got this one already kind of pre-created here. But if you look at this, how I set this one up, so I set it as how would you rate your current knowledge of formative assessment within Google for Education? And I gave the description. And this was set up as a multiple choice quiz. And I gave those options on 1 through 5. And I listed the teacher center if people needed reference. And for a question, you have the opportunity as well to, again, set the grade, the points. And do you want students to see the results? I also made it so it posted this specifically in this section about questions. So again, it all gets organized in the piece I want. And then I can click save. So anybody would be able to go in now and fill this out if you like. You can click on, you'll see this under the classwork page for you as a student. You would also see whenever I send this out, it would have got posted earlier in the class as a question. So it would have got posted for the group to see right here. And so again, the students can actually access it right there as well. In the classwork tab, if I view that question, for myself as a teacher, I can see the student view and I can see any comments, but I can also see my student answers really quickly. So now I have the ability to see who's turned it in, what their responses were. I can see the overall breakdown of this like in a poll format because it was, again, multiple choice. And I can go through and see student by student what their answer was. I can click on that student, and this is all anonymous right now, but I could see their response. And in this case, if this was just something I was asking them to, complete that was all you needed to do, is just simply complete it, and then you can give them a grade. I can type in, they got it done, they've got a 5 on 5, and I could then move on to my next student. And I can give those marks. I can also provide individualized feedback in the private comment below. And this will allow my student to also reply to me. They could write questions related to that. That's not very good feedback. So maybe they're going to ask me to elaborate on how they did. And we can have an ongoing conversation specific to that assignment right there. Once those have been graded, I'm going to go through this process now because this will look the same again, whether this is a question, whether it's an assignment or a quiz. But as I grade that work, I can click return, and I can return it to just these students that I've gone through and actually put the mark to. That's what it's done here by default. I could select everyone who's turned it in if I had, let's say, presumably gone through and given everyone a mark there. Or I could return the whole class. You've got the option of when you want to do that. Generally with my groups, what I did is I waited and wait till all those submissions are turned in, or wait till the due date is passed, then go through and assess all of the ones that have been turned in and then return it to them. If some students had yet to turn it in, then I'd obviously leave that and not return it to them, or you could with an incomplete mark. But you've got those abilities to turn things in, return things to the student as you complete it, or once everyone has finished. Once you click return, again, you've got an option again to add a private comment if you wanted to add additional feedback before you return it. And that works as well if you have multiple students you're returning it to. So you could just say like, thanks for turning your assignment in on time. So you can return it to multiple students with that same feedback. Students will get a notification on their end that their work has been returned to them. and they'll be able to see it in the grade section in the previous work. They'll see that it's been returned, and they'd see their mark associated with that. So that is, a quick kind of glance at the process of viewing the student submissions and adding comments, adding marks, in this case of a question and returning it. But we want to focus on the different assignment types that you have available as a teacher. The question option is really more for, again, kind of quick polling like that. But when you create an assignment in Classroom, you'll see you've got options to create that question like we mentioned. A material is really just for resources. You can reuse any posts you've ever created in any of your class teams. So whether that was in an archive class or in another class that you're maybe assigning at different times, you can click reuse and you can just find what is the class where you've used that assignment, whether it's archived or not, select the class, and you'd be able to find any assignments in there. And you can just select the assignment. You can make new versions of all the attachments for your new group, which is generally recommended if you're making a copy of the assignment for a new class. And then you click reuse, and it will allow you to very quickly reuse that same assignment with all the instructions, the resources, the attachments that you've created. I want to show you the options you have for a quiz and also a what's just generally called as an assignment. Just to quickly outline those differences. An assignment is going to be something where you can attach a Google Doc, slides, sheets, really any website link, but you can attach templates from those editable platforms like Docs, Slides, and Sheets, where it really excels and works best. And you can generate assignments that will create a unique copy of that attachment for every one of your students. That's really the power of the assignments. I'm going to send one to all of you in just a moment. A quiz assignment, like the name suggests, is going to allow you to create a Google Forms quiz where you can have automated assessment of that quiz, where it's going to allow students to submit it and then see their answers immediately once they've submitted it. You can have preset feedback that they will receive based on what they choose. And you can have those grades as soon as they click submit. You can have the grades imported directly into your classroom, which is really nice. So I've got two examples of each of these set up that I want to send to you here. So the first one I want to send to you is under assignments, and it's this assignment called Sources of Plastic in Our Oceans. It's one of the default ones that's created with with this demonstration domain. Right now, this is set as a draft for me. So I'll just demonstrate. I'm going to go into edit just to make sure everything looks good. I've got my title. I've got my instructions. I've got a Google Doc that I've already created, a template. And again, you could create a new one. You can use docs, slides, sheets, drawings, or forms. I could add anything from my Google Drive, a link on my computer, a file or YouTube video as well. The great thing is you can add additional resources. So I could add a YouTube video directly in here for them to watch. And then once they've watched that, they can open up the Google Doc to start doing their work. So that's an option that you have as well. And the piece here is that you can, when you create a Google Doc or use one that you've already got a template for, I'm going to just open this quickly to show you what it looks like. I can make any edits to this template as well. In this case, we've actually completed, the first question's been completed for you, and then you can fill out the second one with whatever response you want, and you can follow the instructions. But you can edit that template, and back in our classroom assignment page, I have the options to say, do I want this file to be view only to my students? Do I want it to be a collaborative editable document for everyone, which I'll demonstrate as well in just a moment? Or what is most widely used is to make a copy of that file for each student. And again, that's going to allow you to take that single file that you have a template of, and it will make a unique editable copy for every one of your students. And again, you could send this to 17 groups in a single click, and it will make 300 unique versions of that file, setting the student and yourself as the only editors, and nobody can see each other's work. That's really the power of a platform like Google Classroom. So that's the option that most educators use for a lot of different opportunities. So I've got that set. I've got it going into, I've set up my grading where I've got different categories for grades in my class. So I've got quizzes, questions, and assignments here. This is an assignment I'm going to list it as. It's posted in that topic, and I can set my due date. Again, like we said with posts, you can save things as a draft. You could schedule them to release at a specific time. But in this case, I'm ready to post this. The piece we also want to mention is about using rubrics, and I just want to show that to you here. In the slides, I'm going to show you in a sec, I've created an example rubric that you can feel free to upload and use in your assignments. But this option for a rubric, this is a draft that I've got, so I can edit this, or I could add a new rubric in a new assignment. But I'm going to click on that just to open this up. Here's an example of a rubric that I created for this sample assignment. You can add whatever criterion you want. You can add whatever number of levels that you want to your rubric. So we can do that by just simply clicking Add Criterion. If you have different criterion, I'm using 3 here: ideas, evidence, and references. And you can add different levels by clicking on the plus sign, and you don't have to have the same number of levels. This is a nice piece too. You can have 5 levels for one criterion, whereas 3 for the others. You can also have different point valuations for these different criterion and the different levels. And by doing that, it's going to automatically set then the score, and it allows students to see exactly what's expected for that work before they start the assignment. And for me, as an educator, as a teacher then, when students submit their work, when I go to assess this, which we're going to do in just a moment, I can literally just click on these boxes and click on the level that they're at. And I can give customized, tailored feedback for each criterion or for the whole assignment on the whole, but it will automatically calculate the points based on what level I indicate they're at. So that's an example of a rubric that I've set up. Now you can, again, with any rubrics that you use, you can export them. So if you create a rubric, you can export it to Sheets, and it's going to make a Google Sheets template for a rubric that looks like this. This can then be shared with your colleagues. You can share this with a peer. You can upload this then when you create a new rubric. In the slides for today's session, I've pasted in this link here. And that's an example of a Google Sheet for this specific rubric that I created that you're welcome to upload, and then you can edit it and tailor it as you need to. When you want to import a rubric, I've put a little screenshot in here, but I'll demonstrate where that is again as well with this assignment. But this is a really powerful piece of the assignments function in Classroom. I'm going to just close this, and I will click Assign because I want you to see this assignment come in, get that notification, and start to see the options you have for viewing the rubric as you're working the assignment, for filling that section out in the template, and then for submitting it. I also, in this demo domain, have a enterprise license set up, so I can use this option to check for plagiarism, run an originality report, where my students will have the ability to check that before they submit their work. And I, as the teacher, can also use that function to see if it's matching any sources online or matching other student submissions. If you have a free Google for Education license, you actually you are allowed to use 3 originality checks throughout the course of any class. So that means that 3 assignments per year, you could choose to run an originality report on with a free license. So again, if you've got some in mind that it might be most applicable for, you can do that. But it is only going to check against online sources and not against your peers, your classmates' submissions. I'm going to click Assign here, and you should get a notification then in the class stream that a new assignment's been posted. And you're going to see that if you want to go into the classwork as well. And I'll just show you in the stream where that posted. It's going to move it right to the top here. It can show that I've posted a new assignment. with the title, the instructions. Students can see the rubric right there. They can click to open and view the rubric. And then when ready, they can click on that to start working on the assignment. I can see the status of how many have been assigned and how many have turned it in. And again, we've got our due date set up here. We can also just write in the comments about questions students may have, and they can ask questions themselves directly, that assignment right there. But what you could do from the student perspective, I'm going to switch to a student perspective in this classroom. So I'm going to just switch my teacher view to a student view. This is one of the demo accounts that's in the class. And as a student here, I can see that this has been assigned to me. It's due today at 4, so I better get started. And I can click on this. And it gives me a breakdown again of when I've finished, I can click turn in to notify the teacher. I've got the rubric listed right there that I can see the details if I want to expand it. And when I'm ready, I can just click on my document. It's going to open that Google Doc in a tab next to my classroom, and I could fill in my submission. So I'm just going to do this. Here is a sample of my answer. Just do this really quickly to demonstrate. So I can fill that content out, and when I'm ready, I can go back to my class, and they can actually turn it in now right from the doc itself. That's something new in docs where you have the students have a turn in button right at the top. Previously, they would have to close the tab and then click the big blue turn in button. Your students can turn it in right from the Google Doc, but if they want to attach any additional resources, they can click add or create, and it allows them to add or link any files in their drive, an external website they might have used, create maybe a drawing, elaborating on things further. So they can add additional work beyond the template that you ensured that they had to complete. And then when they're ready, they have this option to run an originality report. So they'll see this option to run one, and they can get a little status notification here. And when it's done, they can click view report, and it will show them what's been flagged, if there are sections that are matching. So, it shows them what passage it was matching from and where that site was coming from. But again, this is just them actually sourcing the proper website. So there's nothing here that looks like it's, matching a particular other person's submission. So the student has the ability to do that. They can even print this off if they want. And then when they're ready, if they said everything looks good, they can click turn in. It'll remind them that this is going to be submitted, and now they're only going to have read-only access of that document from now on. So they won't be able to continue that edit that document once they click turn in. And as a teacher, if I was to shift back to my view here now as a teacher, I can see that 2 assignments have now been turned in. So I could see my 2 students here that have turned in the work. And let's say I open up, this is Lisa's assignment here. I can click to open that up. And I can see, the answer that she's putting in this document. And again, even before she turned this in, I would have been able to click into her document and see her work in real time. Now, this is the part where, again, having a rubric is really, really helpful, because now I can open up my criterion for my rubric. So the first one is about ideas. Did Lisa show thorough understanding of the topic and include insightful details? We're going to use this as a demonstration. I'm going to say yes, absolutely. So I can click on that, and it's telling that she got 20 out of 20 in that criteria. And it shows us just a little visual breakdown as to what level they're at. You can even click on that level without opening it up. So, for evidence, I can see Lisa didn't really fully explain all the evidence that they needed to. And if I want to read what did I actually put as the details for that level of the rubric, I can see it there. And for references, I could, again, select her level. And now add a comment saying, thanks, Lisa, great work. Again, not very high-level feedback, but I'm going to post that. And when I'm ready, I can return this to her. So I could return it right now, or I could also just navigate to the next student. And this will show me all of my students in real time as they're working on it, whether they've submitted it or not. I could also click on the drop down here where the student's name is, and I can see again who it's been assigned to and who's already turned it in. So if I want to jump to somebody who's turned it in, I can navigate to theirs. And again, you can do that and mark that work without ever leaving the interface. You just navigate from one document to the other. You've got your rubric available right there, and you can again continue to use that rubric to automatically populate those grades. You can give individual feedback though, again, on the assignment. And when you're ready, you can return it. So if I go back to Lisa's, I can see that right now it's under draft because I haven't returned it, but she's got 30 out of 35. I can also run an originality report myself right here and see if there's flagged passages. And then when I'm ready, let me just go back into Lisa's document. When I'm ready, I can click return. And that's going to notify Lisa the mark she got. She can see her feedback. And on her end, she'll be able to actually see the rubric with the highlighted levels of criteria, where she got marks, where she lost marks. And I can see if she had private comments too back. I can see here that she's responded in this case. Let me just hide my screen. I can see that she's responded that she spent lots of time on the assignment. So that gives you an overview of what that feedback process looks like. If your students needed to undo a submission as well, they have that option. They could get constructive feedback from you if you sent them a comment, and then they could unsubmit their work. They could continue to edit, until that time that they're finished their good copy, and then when ready, they could resubmit, and then be able to again have gone through a feedback cycle and working with either teacher or peer feedback, improve on their ideas, expand on their thoughts, and then resubmit their work. So that gives you a kind of a picture of what that feedback cycle can look like. So we're at 3:47, so I don't want to keep people beyond our scheduled time here. In this classroom, again, you have access to these credentials. You can continue to look through the classroom. There are also examples of forms assignments and quiz assignments. So if you look under the classwork, you'll see that there's this changes in matter check-in, which is a forms quiz. So if you want to see the perspective of students being able to work on an automatically generated forms quiz, I encourage you to feel free to open that up and submit it. It's going to give you automated feedback. You're going to see your mark right away and be able to then see what that process would look like using a quiz, which is again one of your options you have. You can use those questions, assignments, or quiz assignments. So those are the main pieces that we wanted to go through today. All of the information again we covered is listed in the slide deck. So you can go through and find any of those resources that we had mentioned. The link to, again, the assignments, the quizzes are there. And you can also, again, use that Google for Education Teacher Center to be able to really develop any additional knowledge that you need of using Classroom to its fullest by going through either the PDF learning materials, the videos, or those certification courses if you're interested. So thank you everyone for joining. I am going to stick around and just address any questions in the chat that we haven't gotten to, but otherwise I appreciate you joining Lisa and I today. Feel free please to reach out and connect with us. Again, I've posted my information here so you can message me directly. My email address as well, I'm going to put into the chat, and it's also listed on the conference website as well, but I will paste it into the chat. And you're welcome to, again, email me directly, and just if you had any specific questions, something that we didn't get to in terms of the ins and outs of Classroom, please feel free to email me there. But otherwise, appreciate you joining us. And if you want to stick around and ask any questions in the chat, feel free to do so. And have a great weekend, everyone.